I was born in 1913.
Ah.
Yes, my last birthday, which was July the 15th, I was 89. 89. Next year, I will be a nonagenarian. I told that to one of the kids, and they said, Aunt Ruby, you know you are Baptist. I was 14 years old, July the 15th, and I graduated in the June before I was 15 years old. While I was still in high school, if you were breathing, they would let you work. They didn't ask you how old you were or anything. I got a job at this tea room, very elegant tea room. Okay, I was doing real well, except that I picked up a tray that had some watermelon, leftover watermelons in it. That watermelon slid out of my hands and right down the front of a gentleman. Now, I don't know that he was so disturbed, but whoever it was I was working for, that was my last day. They thought I was exaggerating, which I never do. Oh, you are making me leave something out.
Okay.
I went to college. I went to NTAC.
And what's it called? What does that stand for?
North Texas Agricultural College. That was a 2-year college in Arlington.
And now it's UTA.
And now it's UTA, 4 years. Mm-hmm. But I went there 1 year and started on the second. And I talked my mom and dad out of letting me quit and go to work for Crassus. Aunt Opal was 5 years older than me. So when she started, at that time, children didn't start to school until they were 7 years old. And when she started to school, she would come home, and I was 2 years old. She taught me everything she learned. So when I started to school, well, they just kept promoting me up, and that's the reason I finished school. Of course, they have more sense now than to do that. But do you know, I never knew there was a Great Depression. My daddy worked at Swift's, and he brought us home stuff that you couldn't buy on the market. John W. Britt, Jr., he was still in high school, and he was working on weekends at Armour's. So he calls me one day, and he says, Ruby, I want you to come and help us out. It's just for a little while. And I said, you mean down there at that stinky place? Yes, it doesn't stink where you're going to work. No way. Well, he says, I've already told them you are coming. So down I went. And I worked there, I think it was 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer than that, or maybe not quite as long. Okay, this fellow that I was working for, he said, I want to take you up and I want you to meet the manager. I said, why? I said, you're through, aren't you? Yes, but I just want you to meet him. Okay, so I went up there. And then he began telling this manager what a wonderful job I did. So he said, well, I'll tell you what, take her over to so-and-so. So I was dumbfounded. I didn't know whether to say thank you or kiss my foot or what. So he took me over. It was in the office there. So while I was catching my breath, he had me working for Armour's. And I worked there for 36 years. I know I drove 11 years without a license.
Oh, Lord.
And, you know, I was always going to get one. But
Oh, why bother?
and finally, you know, I got stopped. So he said, well, why don't you have your license? And I said, well, in fact, I was just going to get them. And he says, are you sure? And I said, yes, I'm sure. And he says, will you go right now to get them? And I said, I will. And he says, I won't give you a ticket if you promise to go right now and get them. I said, well, I've got to go home, but I promise you I'll get them today. And I went and got them.
That very day.
I've been driving for 11 years, but I've had a Pontiac, and I've never had a Ford.
Good for you.
Because my daddy, he just believed that people that didn't have very much sense bought Fords. The one car I still wish I had was a 57. It was black, and it had this things out by the. Can you remember
It had
that?
a red interior
Yes.
and a black 57 Chevrolet.
Okay. Now Herb went to school in that, and I thought, it was ruined, and so I swapped it off. But if I had that right now, I'd still drive it.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful.
It was a pretty car.
That's the one that I loved the most. Herb and John Baker was about 5 or 6 years old.
Well, we figured that Herb was about 7 years older than him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Opal and I took those two children to California. At that time, the motels, they didn't all have swimming pools and
TVs.
and TVs. So these boys, they said, well, we have to have both. We have to have a place where they have both a swimming pool and
a TV.
And a TV. Okay, we stopped at one place, and they had one of the others. We stopped it in the second place. And then Opal was mad. She said, we are stopping at the next one, and I don't care if they have a TV or a swimming pool or even a place to go to the toilet. We're stopping. So we did. That was Opal. We did have fun, though, with those kids, and it was a great trip. Minerva
Kimball.
Oh, and I said, I talked to him about, he said she was the meanest thing. I said, no. Yes, she was. She was meaner than a snake. We took some kids out there one time and stopped at Reno. And, kids a certain age couldn't go in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we went in anyway. So we got escorted out.
Oh, did you?
I have never served on a jury. While I was working there, I had a summons to serve on a jury, and I was delighted. And they would not let me go because the war was on. And I was working at a place where they didn't have to go. And they said, no, you're not going. I haven't been since. They've never called me since. I was 62, and they wanted you to retire when you were 62. I don't care how good you were at the job, they still wanted you to retire at 62. So, retired I did. They sort of insisted on it. But then what irritated me is they told me after I retired, my job, they hired 2 people to do it. And Opal and I moved here at 1209 Crestview Drive in Hurst, Texas. And we just had a wonderful time. We could do whatever we wanted to, and we didn't have to go to work, and it was just great. But I did have boyfriends. Kelly asked me the other day, Aunt Ruby, would you tell me something? Sure. Did you ever have a boyfriend? Why didn't you get married? And I said, well, I had a boyfriend. I'll show you their pictures. And so I got some pictures out and showed her the boyfriends that I had. But I said, they didn't suit me, or I didn't suit them one. And I said, and then I was needed at home. And so I didn't have time to get married. A fellow that goes to church there, he lives across the pond from him, and he'll say, what was his name? Oh, Gene Magruder was his name. He said, Magruder asked me about you. Yeah, but now Gene has diabetes, and he's in a kind of a bad way. See if I'd married him, I'd be taking care of him now.
Taking care of him now.
Yeah. So in some ways, I was smart. Okay, this old guy, he lived way out in East Texas, all out there by himself. So these politicians were in their car, and they got lost. And they were really lost, and they were so confused, and it was night, and they ran into a tree. Really bad wreck. There they were, all out there lying, and blood everywhere. So this old guy, he says, he just buried them. And so when the police came out there, he says, well, how did you know they were dead? He said, well, they were laying still, blood all over everywhere, and said they weren't moving. And he says, well, now there was two of them that says, don't bury me. And he says, you can't believe politicians. I laughed at that. That's an awful joke, but I laughed when I heard that.
You can't believe a word they say.
Word they say.
I'm alive, I'm alive.
Oh, man.
Funny joke.
Oh. And I'm in very good health. I don't know where I inherited it from, but I'm in good health for 89 years.
Absolutely.
And so I can remember one Christmas. It was great. And Jewel and I, for Christmas, we had a table built, a little table, and it's about this big around, and it had two chairs that we can sit down in, and we got that for Christmas, and some tea things, little tea things. Oh man, that was a Christmas.
That one was special.
Mm-hmm.
How many years younger than you was Joel?
2 years
Just 2
younger.
years younger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was 83 when she died. 83. Yeah. And I don't think I'll ever die.
That's okay. We want you to stay around.
Well, looks like I am whether you want to or not. Oh, I bought a fur. And I've got a picture somewhere with that fur on, put around your neck, and this got something down here and the tail's over here. Oh, it was pretty. And I couldn't keep up the payments on it. And Daddy, that's the only time I ever remember that he really got mad at me. And I'm not going to tell y'all what he called me. Now, this was a nickname. He called me Puss. Isn't that awful? But he always called me Puss. He says, if you ever buy anything out on your credit again. Well, he really got me told, but he paid off the fur for me.
But said, don't do it again.
No, and I never did again. They say those were the good old days, but I don't know.